Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this webinar. I'm super excited to talk about this topic, habits of resilient people. I'm super passionate about this topic and spent a lot of time in my master's program learning about resilience and then also trying to incorporate some of what I learned in my own life. And it has really helped me out so much. And I hope I can give you guys some hints to help you out in this crazy thing called life. So really quick, I want to go over the difference between resiliency and resilience. Yes, there is a difference, and I think it matters because resilience has become such a trendy buzzword in health and wellness. We are all constantly hearing tips on how to be resilient, but we never really hear an explanation of what resilience is or how it came about. So, resiliency is the process and the experience of being disrupted by change, and then in the aftermath of that change, becoming stronger. In essence, it's the journey. It's important to note that resiliency process doesn't always have to be something bad. It can be good things, like starting a new program at school, getting married, getting a new job. It's basically anything that takes us out of our normal comfort zone. And when we are taken out of our comfort zone, we all go through similar processes. Look at the bottom of the slide and see the decline. It will be very common when you are going through times of change to experience physical and emotional symptoms of stress. Your sleeping might get off the schedule, or you might feel irritable and anxious and feel kind of unsure and insecure about yourself. This is all normal. And what you want to do is adapt to this situation and deal with whatever change is happening in a productive way rather than a negative way. And this is where resilience comes in. And then you go to the top of the graph and you have recovery and growth. This is basically resilience. So, resilience is a set of skills. They're the skills that get us through the resiliency process. We can call these skills innate drives, motivation, qualities, or habits. It is basically different coping mechanisms that get us through the resiliency process. These drives are different for all of us. We all have our different coping styles of getting through stressful times. And part of being human and progressing in life is to recognize your own motivations and what drives you during challenging times. I think we can all think of people in our lives who are highly effective and are actually really good under times of stress, and they just tend to bounce back very quickly. You know, my mom is like this, and sometimes it's kind of annoying. But all joking aside, we can actually learn a lot from resilient people, especially those of us who don't feel so resilient, because just I said, resiliency is a set of skills that can be learned. So why not take note from individuals who appear to be innately resilient? And that's where resilience research comes in. The beginning of resilience research started after World War II, when psychologists went into areas that were devastated by the war. These psychologists were working with children, some who had seen and been through just unimaginable circumstances like death, poverty. Some of these children lost everything. And to the psychologist's surprise, some of these kids were actually doing okay. They had good attitudes and they were adjusting well. And this made the researchers question why. Why were some of these children thriving after a horrific experience and others weren't? This question piqued the interest of the researcher named Emmy Warner, who conducted one of the largest, most well-known studies related to resilience. This was the Children of Kauai study. This was a longitudinal study that followed nearly 700 children over a 40-year period. And the children of the study grew up on an island in Hawaii in extreme poverty, where alcoholism with the parents was a huge issue. In her research, she found that over time, 1/3 of these extremely vulnerable children adapted exceedingly well over time. And by the end of the study, Emma was able to identify 3 predicting factors that made the children thrive in diversity. And the first factor was just being in a tight-knit community. The second was having some type of stable role model in their life. And the third was just the children having a strong belief in their ability to solve problems. So if you fast forward resiliency research today, a multitude of medical and health studies that research highly effective people have agreed on 4 qualities of resilient people. The first being, resilient people have a strong inner self of control. Maybe some of you are wondering what the heck that means. And the way I have had this explained to me that helped clarify what an inner sense of control was. Basically, resilient people don't let the situation control them. They have this inner voice that says, I can be the way I want to be regardless of the situation. Think about the children in Hawaii or in Europe after the war. They were in these crazy circumstances, but they did not let the terrible situation control their destiny. They were in control of their destiny through their thoughts and actions by maintaining a positive, realistic outlook. The second quality is resilient people have is a sense of connectedness, which means they are able to connect to nature, other people, or a higher power other than themselves. Sometimes when we get stressed, we kind of tend to shut down and isolate ourselves. Resilient people do the opposite. They find connection with people they love and they ask for support, which actually gives them energy and motivation to get through times of change. The third quality of resilient people is that they're able to find a sense of meaning and purpose in the here and now difficulties. They understand there is value to the struggle and are able to grow and learn from the experience, coming out of it even stronger and wiser. And the last quality is hope. Resilient people have an innate sense and confidence that they will be able to deal with whatever situation arises. They're able to envision what they want before it happens and maintain a positive outlook, rather than just telling themselves the situation is hopeless from the beginning. Okay, so we have been talking about resilient qualities, which is based off observations and self-reported data. Now I want to talk about resilient brains. Neuroscientists are now looking at our brains to figure out why people respond differently to stress. And the use of MRI technology has allowed scientists to look at the parts of the brains that are governed by emotion. And by measuring blood flow, scientists can see what stress looks like in different people. This is important because the way we respond to stress is a critical element of resilience. I'm sure most of you guys have heard a quote or something similar to this. It's not the stress that kills us, it's our reaction. And what these MRI images are showing is that different parts of our brain are responsible for how we react to stress. And what they have found is resilient brains have the capacity. This gets a little tricky, I'll explain it in detail later, but resilient brains have the capacity to appropriately regulate the subcortical fear circuits under conditions of stress. Now I know that sounds complicated, but basically what that means is resilient brains are able to quiet down kind of the more fearful, emotionally reactive part of our brains. If you look at the image on the slide, the resilient brain, you can see the red and yellow. That the resilient brain is using a different part of the brain than the blue image. The way this was described to me, which I love, is that we have 2 minds in our brain. We have our wise mind, which is kind of like the CEO of our brain. It's logical, compassionate, loving, and calm. And this is our prefrontal cortex and is located kind of behind our forehead. Then we have our fearful brain. This is our more reptilian brain, and it is part of the brain that responds to threats and stress. And it is also part of the brain that activates fight or flight. So the stronger connection resilient people have that I referred to earlier means the prefrontal cortex, our wise, rational mind, can more quickly tell the amygdala to quiet down in times of stress. So what this means is resilient people are able to operate more from the prefrontal cortex when they are stressed, which means they respond to stress in a way that is more calm, rational, compassionate, wise, and logical, which of course leads to better outcomes. This is a huge advantage because when we are in fight and flight mode, our reactions are not the greatest. We tend to be irritable, we can lose our temper, get defensive, or we just take off and avoid situations because we are anxious and just too scared to deal with the situation. Or some of us just freeze. We go numb, we detach, or we give up just completely. But what this means is that we don't learn and grow. We digress rather than progress, which is part of the resiliency process. Okay, so here's a visual for some of you guys that are more visual learners. This is you when your amygdala is in charge. You feel like you are going to burst. You feel out of control. We don't want to react like this, like a screeching kettle. I think we can all relate to this type of reaction when we're irritable and angry. It happens to all of us. What we want to be careful of is that we are not reacting like this all the time, which can be hard because we are under a lot of chronic stress. Fight and flight in the modern world can be activated many times a day. The problem in dealing with situations when we are in fight and flight mode is we end up feeling much worse when all is said and done. Maybe you lashed out on a loved one or avoided a situation that needed to be addressed at work. You always have to deal with the consequences of your bad behavior, which just causes more stress. And also, activating fight or flight is physically exhausting. It takes a lot out on your body, releasing all those chemicals and getting all riled up. Then you're left feeling like this balloon. You feel deflated, tired, worn out, and not resilient at all. What we want to do is react in a way that resembles this relaxing cup of tea. Think of times in your life when you feel at peace and react in a way that is loving and compassionate. This is you using your prefrontal cortex. You are calm, you're rational, you're more patient and accepting of the situation, you're not being judgmental, and then you just feel better. Your heart rate and breath are steady, you feel in control. And these positive feelings then allow you to be more in tune with others around you and your environment. You are then more receptive to the positive energy around you, which gives you energy, and it actually makes you more resilient. This is the part of the brain we want to be in charge. This is the part of the brain resilient people use in times of stress, which makes them get through times of change more successfully. They can come out stronger and more connected, having learned valuable lessons. Let's take a moment now to reflect on how you react to these modern stressors. Your relationships, sitting in traffic, doing simple things like running errands, just trying to get things done. These are the stressors that seem to hit us all day, every day, all day long, unless you're living under a rock or something. Just take a minute and reflect, and remember, no judgment here. Even resilient brains overact. We are all human. The purpose here is not to feel bad about our behavior or to be judgmental about ourselves. The goal is to become more aware of our behaviors so we know where we need to make changes. Okay, so what mind do you feel like is in control? What illustrations do you relate to? Maybe think back on your week. How do you feel? Are you tired? Do you feel stressed or overwhelmed? Do you feel irritable, angry, or detached? Do you feel like you've run out of energy? Think for a minute. And another thing to think about are the triggers. What are the things that are making you feel this way? Certain people, certain situations? Just take a few seconds to think about that. Okay, or do you feel relaxed, happy, content, and at peace, calm, confident? Do you feel like you're wise, rational? Do you feel energized? Now think, what triggers this part of the brain for you? This is really important for becoming more resilient. You have to start figuring out in your life, what are the negative triggers? What are the things that bring you down, that take away your energy? But then on the flip side, what are the positive things in your life? What are the things that make you feel good? Who are those people? What are those situations? What brings you peace and energy? Okay, now based off those feelings, I want to get into the next part of this webinar where I will discuss ways to access our prefrontal cortex and to become more aware of our thoughts and behaviors so we can see where in our lives we need to incorporate resilient habits in our lives. But remember what I said about resilience. It is a set of skills, and we need to practice. You need to practice a lot, like more than one day, for like weeks, months. This can take a couple of years to really build up this part of your brain. And what the scientific field of neuroplasticity is showing us is that our brains actually do have the ability to grow and make new neural connections. So even if you feel like you're not the most resilient person, that's okay. You can change your brain and become more resilient. I know this for a fact. I have done it. I used to have a lot of anxiety in my life, and all of these resilient habits have helped me tremendously. And I want to give you some tools so you can do the same. Okay, so we talked about this slide earlier, and now I want to go over some ways you can incorporate resilient qualities in your life to make resiliency a habit. And just a heads up for you guys, I will be giving more information on all of these qualities in the next wellness challenge, so look for it on February 4th. If you are interested in learning more practical skills to implement these qualities so we can feel a little bit more like this. Okay. So scientists who study resilience all have their own theories, but they all agree on one thing. Resilient people don't let the situation control them. They have this ability to maintain the mindset, I can be the way I want, regardless of the situation. Resilient people have this mindset because they have a strong sense of inner control. They feel in control internally, even when things outside of them are totally out of their control. And there is a paradox here. They are not trying to control everything and everyone around them. What they have is control over themselves, their thoughts, their feelings and actions and behaviors. And sometimes that is all we have. Think about how many stressful situations in your life where you have no control over the outcome. Luckily, we can all improve our inner sense of control. We all have the capacity to do this. And the first, most important step in doing this is becoming aware of how you react in specific situations. This is called conscious awareness. It is very common to have habitual reaction. That is, responding in the same way every time because we've programmed our brains to do so over time. So, during the next couple of days, I want you to pick a situation in your life that triggers stress or negative reaction. It could be a certain family member sitting in traffic, a situation at work. It can be anything. The key here is to just pay close attention to how you are reacting. Then pay close attention to times you feel at peace and feel calm. Who are you with? What are you doing? Just try to pay attention to the present moment to understand what is bringing you up and what is taking you down. By doing this, paying attention to the present moment, you are practicing mindfulness. I'm sure most of you have heard of mindfulness. It is quite popular right now, but is popular for a good reason. Mindfulness has been shown in clinical studies to activate our prefrontal cortex. Remember, our wise, compassionate mind? Practicing mindfulness is kind of like a workout for your brain. You are training your brain to build up in the right places, that then can be used at the right time. So, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment without judgment. Mindfulness also involves living in the present moment, and it can be done any time by giving a caring attention to whatever you choose. The aim is to focus on one thing, allowing distracting thoughts to pass without judgment. Think of it like this. You want to be an observer of your thoughts, the good and the bad. Accept them for what they are with no judgment. See the devil and angel? Sometimes we tend to feed our more negative thoughts. Here, just observe them for what they are and let them go. And if these negative thoughts come back, acknowledge them and accept them without judgment and just let them go. Just kind of let them flow through your brain without reacting to them. Just pay attention to what they are and kind of how it makes you feel. And even if you just spend a few minutes a day paying close attention to the present moment, you are actually practicing mindfulness. Just give it a try and see if you become more aware of your thoughts, feelings, and reactions. And you actually might be surprised what you discover about yourself. So the next quality or habit of resilient people is a strong sense of connection to themselves, nature, and other people. Very few highly resilient individuals are strong in and by themselves. A significant body of research is showing that the presence and quality of our relationships, along with the support they provide, has a substantial impact on both our psychological and physical well-being. Ask yourself, in stressful situations, is the way you react connecting you or disconnecting you from the people in your life? Rather than lashing out on loved ones, express your feelings. Let them know you are struggling rather than shutting them out. Sometimes just telling people how you're feeling can help out a ton. We all need support. Ask for help. Resilient brains are able to get out of their heads too and make connections with things bigger than themselves, like nature, for example. But this is not surprising. Scientists have shown there is a constant vibration from the earth, and this vibration has healing properties. This might explain why we feel rejuvenated after being in nature. Also, studies have shown our bodies respond differently to different habitats. So for example, walking in a natural setting, just having trees around, can result in a 12% decrease in cortisol levels. Things like going hiking or going for walks can be relaxing and rejuvenating at the same time. So if you connect with nature, get outside. There's so many health benefits. The third quality or habit of resilient people is a deep sense of meaning and purpose. That is, resilient people can find meaning in the here and now difficulties using wisdom rather than intellect. I think sometimes it is hard to lose sight of what really brings us meaning and purpose in this world, considering as a society we put so much emphasis on material objects, money, career, status, things like that. And I think we can all benefit from spending some time now and again kind of clarifying our motivations and our deepest values. And it can be helpful to do this by figuring out what motivates you to do the things in your life. Do you feel like you're motivated by more external rewards like money, career, status, that type of thing? Or are you motivated by internal rewards where you focus more on the process rather than the goal? In life, it is important to be motivated by both. There are realities in this world. We need to make money. Job growth is important. But here we want to be careful. We are not too heavy on the external side of things. Being too focused on external motivators can activate the fear part of our brain, which is more competitive and aggressive. Focusing on some internal rewards like personal growth, strengthening our relationships, altruism, volunteering, these types of things can bring more meaning and purpose to our lives, which actually activates our prefrontal cortex. And remember, that's what we want to do to become more resilient. The last quality of resilient people is the ability to find a sense of hope to better deal with whatever situation arises. Resilient people just have a good outlook. You can do this by pulling the weeds. I advise you for the next week, just try to get rid of anyone or anything that brings you negativity in your life. Negative thoughts and emotions are stressful and they don't serve anyone. We are all products of our thoughts, and what we focus on affects the physical body along with our environment. So try to create some positive thoughts that will build you up and bring abundance to your life. Okay guys, thank you so much for listening to me. I could go on and on this. So if you guys would like to hear more on this topic, please contact me. I would love to come give a seminar. I have a lot of great different meditations and breathing exercises that can really help reinforce some of these resiliency qualities and make resilience a habit in your life. So if you want more information, just contact me. Thanks so much and have a good day.